One of the most disturbing elements of the Prohibition War is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows the futility of prohibition and reaches out to educate the community and current law enforcement. Today, the Russ Belville Show visits with another speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition with one clear message: cops say legalize drugs.
Welcome back, 32 after the hour, and today for Cops Say Legalize Drugs, a special segment where we joined with Diane Goldstein from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, who caught up with us at the 420 radio booth at the Cannabis Cup. Enjoy. Oh, there we go, Leonard Skinner. That smell. Have you been outside? Have you smelled that smell? That's the smell of freedom, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 420 radio booth. It's the Russ Belville Show live at the Southern California Cannabis Cup. I don't call it the LA Cup anymore. We're too far from LA. We've got LEAP's Diane Goldstein here, a executive board member of LEAP, Lady Bud Magazine representing. What else? What else has been added to your CV since we last introduced you?
Let's see, Moms United. I'm now on the steering committee for Moms United to End the War on Drugs, which is a very interesting organization. It's actually a coalition campaign made up of moms and others from, now we're expanding internationally, that basically want to end the drug war. The majority of these moms are not marijuana consumers or substance abusers, but what they share is, like me, is my brother passed away from a drug overdose, and a lot of these parents have had their children lost to the war on drugs, in some aspect, imprisonment, incarceration, not being able to get jobs, or death. And so because of their experiences, they recognized several years ago that the war on drugs was very harmful to families. So they work across the country to do legislative advocacy. They've been very, very strong in California in helping design Good Samaritan laws, naloxone laws, all sorts of harm reduction strategies that are really going to benefit our community. And in fact, one of the things that LEAP is working on right now is, outside of the cannabis and the marijuana issues, is bridging the gap with law enforcement to introduce harm reduction into their language so they understand things like safe injection facilities, enhanced public safety, and safe lives. That having public safety firefighters and police officers have access to naloxone is part of our mission to protect our community. That designing programs like Seattle PD and King County Sheriffs did, the law enforcement assisted diversion, where they don't even book people who are low-level drug offenders or prostitutes, or even sell drugs to maintain their lifestyles because of economic circumstances, that they're diverting them out of the system, and they're having tremendous success in reducing crime without criminalizing or harming people through jail.
It's amazing work that's being done here, and it brings to mind the end of alcohol prohibition, and actually the beginning of, it's really interesting how, women helped start these prohibitions, and then they help end these prohibitions. With alcohol, it was Carrie Nation and the Axe. With marijuana, it was, I can't remember her name, but she started the Moms in the 80s.
Yes.
It's like, this is a gas mask bong. Oh.
Yes.
And now women are recognizing that the cure is worse than the disease.
No, absolutely. And, I think Ethan Nadelman from the Drug Policy Alliance has said it very brilliantly in the past, is, drug policy reformers, which I believe that everybody who's attending this conference is a drug policy reformer or activist, whether they want to be or not. Yeah. They are. And our nation and our society looks at them in that aspect, which is which is the other issue of how do we teach them to be better activists, even when they're, off duty, so to speak, from having fun.
Yeah.
But the issue becomes is, moms and have a real special connection. We're the nurturers. We are the peacekeepers in society. And what I love about my mom's group is I helped start it with Gretchen Bergman, who you know Gretchen, and you've interviewed her before. Her and I met on a panel. We sat next to each other, instantly connected. She did a mom's presentation. I was doing a cops presentation, and I looked at her and I said, "Moms and cops." And so we started the LEAP and the Moms United Moms and Cops Coalition. That Moms and Cops Coalition has some significant power to change our society. And it's because, for me, it's not just my obligation to my 23-year-old son, who I believe if he wants to use medical marijuana or if he wants to use adult marijuana, that he should be free to do so as long as he has made an informed decision on the benefits and the cons. But what I don't want is for him to get criminalized for behavior that is not necessarily dangerous. I just want to teach him how to minimize the risks. And Moms and Cops has an obligation not to just our individual children, but to all our children. And when I say that, it's not just about our little kids and preventing them from becoming, addicted to substances, whether it's alcohol or cigarettes, but it's to people that, like, I really view a lot of the kids that I've seen grow up in the Students for Sensible Drug Policy movement in the last 4 years. I feel like I'm their caretaker, that I have an obligation to ensure that their life is not ruined because of the criminal justice system, and that's the problem right now. Well, you know it. I mean, aren't you still dealing with the Utah issue?
I am, as of this moment, a convicted criminal in the state of Utah. I have 10 more payments until I'm not.
Wow. But think about that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. How much was the fine on that?
Remarkably, the same amount as my bail. How did that work out? About $1,200.
Well, you know what? That's actually cheap.
Yeah, not so bad.
You know what? I mean, in California, I've paid traffic tickets that high.
Well, I've seen you drive. No.
Yeah, so the Moms and Cops Coalition, I think, is a really good way of focusing the conversation that it's not necessarily about engaging in risky behavior and getting high or anything else. As we cross that whole path, that it's, we have moms that are patients, we have moms that have never used any drugs, and moms that are totally opposed, but they understand that the harms to our society is much worse by continuing in this horrific path that we've done.
Yeah, we're speaking with Diane Goldstein, an executive board member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Check them out at leap.cc. They've got amazing speakers all over the country, all over the world, really, except Antarctica. I don't believe you have a speaker in Antarctica.
We're not in Antarctica, but we are in 120 countries now.
That's fantastic. So check them out, leap.cc. And I wanted to ask you, because you ran through a bunch of harm reduction things, and LEAP has a broader focus than, say, 420 Radio or Cannabis Cup that's generally cannabis focused. So one of the things you mentioned, I think, I want to make sure if someone has never heard of this, that they've heard of it. Tell them about naloxone and what that's all about.
So LEAP believes our mission statement is to end drug prohibition and to bring substance misuse into the realm of public health policies. So naloxone is known as Narcan, and what it is an opioid reversal drug. It is a life-saving drug, and interesting enough, it's heroin that has forced the conversation in law enforcement, where they have now recognized that they cannot arrest their way out of a substance use issue. So, Big Pharma, the OxyContin issue, it is the over-prescribing of really hardcore pharmaceuticals that created a lot of opioid-dependent people who can no longer afford their drugs. So what happened is they ended up going to the illicit market, where you can get a hit of heroin for $10, and that heroin is stronger than it used to be a long time ago. It's now being cut with fentanyl and other products, and it's causing devastation across our nation right now, but really focused out in suburban areas. And so again, that soccer mom issue is, here you had a bunch of suburban soccer moms, all of a sudden, whose kids are dying from heroin overdoses or opioid prescription overdoses. Naloxone can be used either in an injectable form, and now they have even a much simpler nasal air spray. And law enforcement agencies across the country are now being trained to have that in their arsenal of tools. So not only do they have a baton, but they carry naloxone. Quincy, Massachusetts Police Department, about 3 years ago, literally started this, and I just checked the stats. Since they have introduced naloxone in Quincy, they have saved over 300 people's lives.
Wow.
And so one of the things that the cops realized too is it changed the nature of their relationship with their community. So with the advent of not just naloxone, but with Good Samaritan laws, so most people when they die of a drug overdose are with someone else, but because people are afraid to call 911 because they don't want to be criminalized, is we used to get people that get dumped at the hospital,
Yep.
or they just get left in their cars, or they're just dumped somewhere and they die, or someone leaves them and someone comes home to find them. And so, again, Moms United has been really strong in combining that legislative advocacy to pass 911 Good Samaritan laws, pass naloxone laws. California recently has one that you can now go to a pharmacist without a doctor's prescription to get naloxone, I believe. And so this moms group is training citizens on how to use it, and then they're also working with local law enforcement agencies. San Diego Sheriff's is the first agency in California who now has naloxone. And that is spreading across the nation. It's a form of harm reduction. And so I'm going to introduce a word to your audience if they don't know it. All harm reduction means is that we accept that our society, specifically America, is never going to be drug-free. And that what we need to do is, instead of trying to achieve the impossible and use silly abstinence only, just say no and lie to our children, education is we teach our kids about the realities of drug use and how to minimize the harm. And those harms include naloxone in public safety hands. You know, reducing the harms includes safe injection facilities like you see in Vancouver. I believe that San Francisco right now is working on potentially having the first national safe injection facility. It's working to pass laws that allow clean needle syringes that have been shown to actually reduce the harms to both the drug user and to public safety, because now when, you know, I was working patrol, you'd go in and you'd stop someone who was a narcotics user, and I've been needle sticked. You know, and then you're going through, it's a nightmare. So it reduces the harms to public safety. And so we have to continue to bring law enforcement on board to realize that there's alternatives to dealing with the harms of drugs. And we've tried criminalizing, we've tried arresting our way out of this. It's there, it's never going to change. And until we blow up the drug war, we're going to continue to see horrible cases like in Missouri, Show Me Cannabis, Jeff Mahansky. You know, there's pot felons in life in federal prison because they grew, 1,000 plants versus 99.
How about the guy that was just repairing cars?
Yes, exactly.
Repairing cars.
Yeah,
he's doing life.
So it really, really is important. So one of the things I think that people need to understand about California, LEAP is going to be the foot soldier, literally, in doing the outreach to people outside of the cannabis community on why the drug war is such a failure. We're starting to engage in a California LEAP fundraising campaign that is going to be set up to fundraise specifically so we can saturate all of California at Rotary clubs, in the legislators' offices, in business clubs, at universities, to talk about the failures of the drug war. And there is no one better than having me as a retired police officer, or Jim Gray, or Steve Downing, partnered with Gretchen Bergman, who's the perfect soccer mom, to talk about why we need to blow the war on drugs up. So any money, I'm pitching right now because I do pitch. It is, if you can just spare $10 to LEAP, if we could get, 1,000 people to give us $10, we would be able to cover some real significant traveling expenses, because LEAP, from a nonprofit perspective, is really one of the least funded organizations, if you compare us to Marijuana Policy Project or the DPA or ASA or other groups, yet our footprint really is amazing. So we do a lot with the little, so don't be afraid to even give us $4.20.
And let me explain that it really works out. 2 words to prove that. Inga Fricklin, who
fabulous.
helped us in Oregon immensely. I was there at the live debate between the pro and the con on Measure 91, and her and Richard Harris were representing pro, and there was a couple of times when Inga came across so common sense and so maternal that it just blew the opposition out of the water.
Yep.
It was just amazing. They do amazing work. You can get the most bang for your buck. We need to wrap up because it is a Cannabis Cup and, things are happening a mile a minute, but I did want to bring up a subject before I let you go that is of import to moms, I'm sure, and this is the use of child protective services, going after cannabis consumers, people that are medical patients or not, sometimes just recreational consumers. Is there any push with Moms United on that front?
Huge push. So one of the things, and actually it's something that I've been talking about with not just moms. I'm actually working with an attorney in California by the name of Jennifer Annie, and all she does is represents parents whose kids have been taken away by CPS, and she's gotten amazing results. If anyone needs an attorney in California, if your child has been taken away for marijuana, she gets lots of kids brought back to their house. And one of the things we need to critically understand, not just in California, but across our nation, there's a federal law that helps fund what's called Drug Endangered Children Act. Mm-hmm. And so there is money, there are entrenched self-interest, both in law enforcement and with child protective services. Because if you take away a child who's allegedly a drug endangered child, CPS gets money.
Yeah.
And so once again, what the drug war has done is it has monetized things that never should have been monetized. It's monetized law enforcement, it's monetized CPS, and it needs to be blown up. I would propose that one of the things that needs to happen as we win this cannabis war is the next thing we need to do is attack legislatively and change the CPS laws that basically says, you know what, if you are a medical marijuana patient or if you use responsibly as an adult consumption, unless you commit a separate act, merely being a patient or being a user should not allow to have your children removed. And that's how the law has always been, but there's been these wiggle rooms, and the Narcotics Officers Associations train CPS, which most people don't realize.
Yeah.
And what they do is they teach them that there's no such thing as medical marijuana, that any use of medical marijuana or adult consumption marijuana is grounds to take people's kids away. And I work child sex abuse. I let me tell you, I have taken my fair share of kids away. And even in the best of circumstances, I wrote an article for the Huffington Post that really the first time I had to take a kid away who was badly beaten, who should not have been in that house, that kid was holding him, walking down the stairs, and he's grabbing the chair rail, screaming for his mom and dad at the top of his lungs. I get to my car, and I didn't even have kids then. I didn't have my son at that point. I got to my car after I deposited this little boy with CPS, and I broke down and I cried. And it taught me a really valuable lesson that even when we wield power appropriately, we need to understand the emotional ramifications and aftermath to those that we really have been sworn to protect. And let me tell you, I would never leave a child in a situation where they're abused, but I've been to lots of houses where drunk parents have fallen asleep and let their kids walk out the front door. Yeah, maybe we should counsel them and get them into parenting, but I'm not necessarily certain we should take those kids away. So we have to start distinguishing between responsible drug use, and I'm talking alcohol, prescriptions, marijuana, and other, whether it's illicit or not, and separate it between actually truly dangerous behavior towards our kids.
Yeah, and some of the wiggle room things, some of the nefarious things they'll do, like if you're growing a marijuana plant, well, that's going to invite rippers to come to your house, and they might do violent things, and therefore you're endangering your kid. And I'm like, Well, by that logic, I can't have diamonds.
Yeah, exactly. I can't have a safe. Please don't come to my house because I have a safe full of guns. Okay.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
You know, it is, and what they're doing. It's the rhetorics that continues to push criminal justice. And I have to say this from a law enforcement standpoint. There are a lot of voices, and we're starting to win, and they're starting to become a little bit more public. I think that most law enforcement has realized, you know what, adult consumption marijuana legalization is coming. We should embrace it. We should do it in a sense where we enhance public safety. You know, we're still a long way from there, but we're working, we're pushing. And, you know, LEAP really believes in the whole issue of cannabis legalization because one of the reasons why it really is our way to end the drug war entirely. Because when the sky doesn't fall for cannabis, we can just use the same example and say, okay, now we can start talking about harm reduction like Europe does. I mean, Switzerland has the premier heroin-assisted treatment program that they give their heroin addicts heroin that's government prescribed by a doctor. They haven't had a single overdose death. And what they did by doing that is they reduce property crimes between 60 to 90% because people aren't breaking into other people's houses to get their drugs. You know, so we need to go back to our history in law enforcement during drug prohibition, where you had Chief August Vollmer out of Berkeley PD, who professionalized law enforcement, who believed that drug addiction, no different than prostitution and gambling, should not be a police issue, but that drug and substance use was best left to public health officials. And he wanted to have a heroin-assisted treatment program for addicts back in the 1930s.
Yeah.
So let's go back to our roots, let's blow up the drug war, but we can't do it without you, the cannabis consumers, the medical marijuana patients, and we need your support, we need your help to blow it up.
Yeah, give $10 to leap.cc. And does Moms have a website we need to give out?
You know what, Moms United, if you Google Moms United to end the war on drugs, you'll get to it. I think it's momsunited.net. But anyone can find, you can find them on Facebook, you can find LEAP on Facebook, you can find LEAP on Twitter, so follow us, or you can find me on Twitter at Diane M. Goldstein.
Diane M. as in Mary Goldstein, but it's not Mary, is it?
Marie.
Marie,
I'm that good Hispanic, remember?
That's right. All right, thank you so much, Diane Goldstein from LEAP, for joining us here on the Russ Belville Show live at the Cannabis Cup. Let's get back to some music and chill.
Thanks, Russ.